is Alex and welcome to the Lilly Library. So I created this channel as a space for book and film reviews. I've been wanting to do it for so long and I'm so excited to finally pull the trigger on it. I figured for a first video I could do a Q&A of sorts so you can get to know me as a reader specifically. The film videos will come. I have a lot of ideas about highlighting specific filmmakers I love, but I gotta get my feet wet a little bit first, and I am most comfortable with literature. So that's where I'm gonna start. I'm gonna do this video, which is, like I said, an introductory kind of Q&A, and we'll go from there. So let's get started. I have my notebook with all my questions, and here we go. First question is, what is your favorite childhood book? I have so many. It's hard to pick just one, and I didn't. I actually picked a series, so I cheated anyways. But I may do a separate video just on childhood books because they have completely informed my taste as an adult reader. But I decided to go with a series, and that series is A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket, aka Daniel Handler. I was completely obsessed with these books in middle school. I remember, I have a visceral memory of going to the book fair and buying the next book in the series and rushing home to read it. I believe that this series sparked my interest in the macabre, in dark humor and satire, which I still love reading today. If you don't know what this series is about, it's about three orphans, the Baudelaire siblings, and kind of their misadventures through unhappiness and torment. This is a newer edition because I couldn't find my first edition, but this one, if you look at the wear on that spine, you crack it open. Oh yeah, I have no idea if that's focusing, but that is Alexandria in pink gel pen, glittery pink gel pen. Next question. What is your favorite genre, least favorite genre? My favorite genre is probably speculative fiction, which again, I think is kind of a cheat because that encompasses sci-fi, fantasy, magical realism, but it just is what it is. I couldn't pick out of those three a favorite because it would be like Sophie's Choice, like picking my favorite child, impossible, truly impossible. My least favorite genre is probably contemporary romance. It's not probably, it is contemporary romance. The reason being is because I have never read a contemporary romance. Considering my favorite genre is like speculative fiction, I like to use reading as escapism. And if I'm in real life scenarios, that's not enough escapism for me. I need to be like off this planet. You know what I'm saying? The next question is, what book would you like to see adapted into a film? And that is To a God Unknown by John Steinbeck. I read this in 2020 during quarantine, and man, was that a choice. This book is about a man who is attempting to control the forces of nature and realizing that he has no control and that we do not have control over our own fate as a species. There is overwhelming beauty in this book, but there is also a sinister undertone because we kind of know that man is going to repeat his mistake and we are going to be destructive, which is what humans do. And obviously, John Steinbeck is a prolific author. His talent is immeasurable. I mean, it is, for him to do this story in such like a succinct, like, I don't even know how many pages it is. It's not even 200 pages. Nobody can do it better. But I would love to see this adapted, but in a very specific way. I'm thinking like Ari Aster, A24. I need Willem Dafoe. I always need Willem Dafoe in everything, but specifically in this. He may be too old to play this character because to me, I pictured him as a very like Christ-like kind of character. So I'm thinking maybe mid-30s, so maybe Robert Pattinson. I'm getting someone from The Lighthouse, okay? I'm getting someone. I really do think this could be a powerful film if it is adapted correctly. But I have faith. There's so many talented filmmakers. It could happen. Next question, what is your favorite book to film adaptation? And that is an easy answer for me. It is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I think this is easy because the writer wrote the screenplay. This author is able to write the feeling of being young, which is very challenging. And there's a lot of relatable experiences in this novel, but they're very specific. So you have to be really good at your craft to make them feel nostalgic through that story and make them think about their own choices and their own childhood and them coming into their autonomy and facing their trauma. You can also capture that feeling in film, but it requires a really good screenplay to help facilitate it. And I think he was able to do that. And I think a lot of writers, if given the opportunity to translate their work into a screenplay format, would be able to do it as well. And unfortunately, there's a lot of bad adaptations, but this is perfect. Okay, next question. Are there any authors that you will read anything they release? Yes, there are several, but one immediately comes to mind, and that is Matthew Quick. The skill of Matthew Quick's writing is in his characterization. His characters are just so grounded in reality. It's incredible. This particular novel, Forgive Me, Leonard Peacock, is about a young man, and we are following him throughout his day as he is contemplating harming himself and others. And the way he writes Leonard makes you pull from the deepest well of empathy that I maybe have with any character. He also wrote The Silver Linings Playbook, which I cried at the end of, sobbed. He also wrote The Good Luck of Right Now, which is about an adult man on the spectrum whose mother dies, and he's trying to figure out how he's gonna live the rest of his life. Those are my three favorite, and I have read some by him that weren't as moving to me personally, but I'm still gonna always pick him up. The next question is, do you have any guilty pleasure reads? I don't believe in the terminology guilty pleasure. I feel guilty about nothing. There are books that I read that are educational. There are books that I read to become more empathetic or to understand the human experience more. There are books that I read for fun, I just read it for the enjoyment and the excitement. And I don't feel guilty about reading those kind of books. I think you should be able to enjoy entertainment however you want. I think we should always strive towards progression in society and in ourselves. So I think we should always be trying to learn something new, but I don't think that means that we can enjoy things as well. If I had to choose something that I think is pretty terrible now, just in my own opinion, I'm gonna pick Twilight. This is kind of an obvious choice, I know. As you can see, I've worn this book to death. The crack cocaine that was in the pages of Twilight was, as young women, we didn't really have the life experience to be considered impressive to like a man. But in Twilight, you have this kind of otherworldly being who is obsessed with you just for existing and talking about your dad's football game. We're all like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. We wanted any man to just listen to us, That's what we wanted. That's why this book is so successful, and I will die on that hill. And we all wanted to be protected. And, that is society's fault. It's not Stephanie Meyer's fault. It's society's fault. Okay? We all have daddy issues. Okay? The next question is, what is your favorite physical book in your library? That is a tough one. I actually picked two because I couldn't choose. The first book is War and Peace by Tolstoy, which was printed by Oxford University Press in England. Printed specifically on the India paper in 1941, 1942, and 1944. So it could have been printed any of those years. But I know that it was given as a gift in 1944. It says, from Maddie, Xmas 1944. I think there is something very profound about gifting War and Peace while World War II is happening. I think it shows the power of literature and the power of knowledge. I'm a very sentimental person, so if I got a gift like that, it would be very meaningful to me. So that's one. The other edition is this edition of The Great Gatsby. And this specific edition is the Pretty Book Collection by Harper Muse. It continues on the back here. Isn't that stunning? It's very stunning. My husband buys me every edition of The Great Gatsby that he can find. I think I have like 13 editions of The Great Gatsby on my bookshelf, and I am not a book collector. I don't buy special editions. I don't have duplicates of books typically. He does it because he knows how powerful this story is for me and how much it means to me. And it's just one way that he shows me he loves me. And it is very sweet, and all those editions mean a lot to me. So the next question is, what is a book that changed you? And this isn't a novel, but it is a collection of essays and poems, and those are by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson was a 19th century philosopher who believed in the power of literature and the significance of the individual. He was one of the founders of the Transcendentalist movement, which was kind of one of the first kind of cultural movements that we experienced as a country. It's an idea that our meaning of life is mirrored to us in the natural world, and we don't need kind of external factors or man-made ideas to understand our existence. When I was a young adult, I was trying to find purpose in everywhere but myself. And I realized through studying Emerson that I didn't need to rely on finding my identity in other people. And the last question I have is, what is your favorite book of all time? This is truly impossible. I have favorites for when I want to read books about dudes with swords. I have favorites for when it's cold outside. I have favorites for when I'm having an existential crisis. I have so many favorites, but I had to narrow it down and it was very hard. So I chose two because I just could not choose one. I just couldn't. And the first one is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. There is a fluidity to his writing. He sometimes has some unorthodox writing styles and techniques. Sometimes he uses like incorrect grammar, and his sentence structure can be a bit odd, but he is a beautiful writer. And this book is kind of a simple story about a father and a son in a post-apocalyptic world trying to find hope when everything feels hopeless. Like I said, I'm a sentimental being, so stories like this usually tug on the heartstrings the most. It's a specific passage that I have to read to you, just so you can get a sample of his writing style and why this book means so much to me. An old chronicle, to seek out the upright, no fall but preceded by a declination. He took great marching steps into the nothingness, counting them against his return, eyes closed, arms oaring, upright to what? Something nameless in the night, load or matrix, to which he and the stars were common satellite, like the great pendulum in its rotunda, scribing through the long day movements of our universe, of which you may say it knows nothing, and yet know it must. And then on to my favorite author of all time, and that is Ray Bradbury. And this is Fahrenheit 451. He has such a distinct voice. It is all-encompassing. When I'm reading his writing, I am having a full immersive experience. Fahrenheit 451 is a dystopian where information has been controlled by a society, and one way that they do that is by burning books. It is about censorship, it's about limiting knowledge. It is just as relevant today as when it was written, and Ray Bradbury is the best. It's the best there ever was, and maybe the best there'll ever be. So that's it. That is my book Q&A. I will see you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. Okay.